Welcome to Loudoun Now Sports Podcast, something brand new that Loudoun Now is bringing to the Loudoun community. My name is Kurt Aschermann, and I'm your host. And in the course of the next few weeks and months, and hopefully years, we're going to explore sports from the Loudoun County perspective. We're going to look at it from the youth sports perspective. We're going to look at high school sports, college sports, and maybe even some professional sports. Our goal here is to kind of explore some of the issues facing young athletes, the pressures they feel, the pressure they feel to play one sport, for example, all year long. And our guest here today is Joe Theismann, who played all three sports. The pressure they get from being on a team and having to go to practice 2 or 3 times a week, play a doubleheader on Saturday, and then go to more practice on Sunday, and some of the other pressures that young athletes face from their parents, from coaches, and others. And then we're also going to have a chance to have conversations with some famous athletes, some people who have really made their mark on their sport and on sports in the United States. And that's what we're going to do today, because our first guest today is Joe Theismann, NFL legend, Redskins star, Super Bowl champion, NFL MVP, all of those things. And we're happy, Joe, that you're here. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome, Kurt. It's great to join you. And I think it's great that you're addressing some of the topics, I think, for the young athletes today. You know, we can't forget the student athlete aspect of it. We so often now, I think, with the economics that have come into both high school sports and collegiate sports, the dollars seem to be dictating what people do and where they go. And it's great that we'll have a chance to be able to talk a little bit about the high school element and how important it is to make sure you do get your education. I just want to say one thing is what young people have to understand is that your athleticism and the physical gifts God gave you can only take you so far. Sooner or later, you're not going to be able to use them. And the only thing you're going to have to fall back on is your education. And that's what will carry you forward in your life. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that, hey, high school athletics is great. I love playing high school ball. I really did.
Yeah, and you're spot on, Joe. That's exactly what we want to do with this podcast, is to see if we can present some alternatives, perhaps, to some of the things athletes are facing today. Now, you and I think we're born in the same year, because I graduated high school in 1967, and you did too, and I graduated college in 1971. As I think I said to you once, we have other things in common, like the Super Bowl. You won one, and I've seen them. I've watched them. But the other thing we have in common is that you were drafted in 2 sports in 1971, not only by the Dolphins in the NFL, but you were drafted by the Minnesota Twins as well. I was drafted out of high school by the White Sox, and then drafted and signed by the Cubs after my junior year in college. I lasted about a minute and a half because I realized I couldn't hit a fastball. Curveballs I could hit. People always say you can't hit the curve. I could hit the curve.
I was just the opposite.
Really?
I could hit a fastball, but if somebody threw me a sinker or a curveball, I'm just walking back to the dugout.
I could hit the curveball, and I think it's because my hands were so slow, right? My hands were so slow that if they slowed it down, I could hit it. But anyway, I want to ask you this question. When I was drafted, the decision not to sign, which really was my mother's decision, not my father's and mine, but the whole thing was a family decision. You had the same thing? Did you guys have discussions? Why'd you pick football over baseball, for example?
Yeah, we did have family discussions. I sat with mom and dad, and I got drafted by the Twins. Obviously, you mentioned that, and then of course by the Dolphins. I just felt like if something happened in football, I had baseball sort of as a fallback. And so for me, I've seen guys go the other way. I've seen guys go to baseball, but then if you get too far away from football, you're not coming back. So, from my perspective, it was a better route to go for a just in case scenario. And my parents really allowed me to make the decisions.
They did.
Where I went to college, which sport I wanted to play. I played all 3 in high school. You're right. I played baseball, basketball, and football. Loved every minute of every bit of it. And today, I think one of the things we see today, where it was so different when you and I were in school, is there's such a long season for every one of them. And I wonder sometimes how parents having, like, say, 3 children can keep them involved in so many different activities, because they're never going to see one another. You're taking one to soccer, you're taking one to basketball, you're taking one to baseball, you're taking one to hockey, you're taking one to football. And it's I think it's a real challenge for parents today to be able to figure out exactly what they're going to do. Obviously, the kids want to be able to participate as much as they can in different sports. But the important thing is I say this, let the young people decide what they want to do. Which one do they want to do? Not what you want to do as a parent. I've seen and witnessed so many situations where a parent had certain degrees of athleticism or certain talents in any area, and they start to sort of direct their children in that direction, sort of hoping that they can fulfill the dream that they never could. The kids could fulfill the dream. I just say, let them decide. Let them find the joy in what they want to do and the things that they want to have fun with, and then support them. The ship has sailed, I think, when you reach a certain stage, and just let them work their situation out the way they want.
Yeah, my grandson is an athlete. He plays all three sports, football, basketball, and baseball. I'm proud of my daughter and son-in-law because they do leave it up to him. If he ever decided he didn't want to play, they would say, okay, we'll move on to something else. I think if he ever said he didn't want to play, I think my daughter might want to jump off a bridge someplace because she loves watching him play sports, as do I.
Well,
And Max
Kurt,
is a good little player.
Something interesting about that, too, is I think the one thing, no matter what sport a young person decides they want to get into, you have to be somewhat insistent in the parental aspect of it, is that if you're starting it, you're going to finish it.
That's right.
You're not going to get halfway in and go, hey, listen, it's your decision. I'm letting you make the decision. And I think that creates disciplines for young people in their lives. And this is what sports does. Sports not only it gives you an opportunity to be athletic. It gives you, you're outside most of the time. You're just active, and that's good. But you also have to, if you decide you want to make that commitment, you have to make that commitment fully and totally, and then see it through, because that's really what life is all about. This is what drives me nuts about the portal in college athletics. Somebody goes someplace and they see somebody, they don't want to compete. They just want to go somewhere where they think they can be the best. And I think it's eroding some of the aspects of life for young people going forward, because once you leave the collegiate aspects of life, once you leave college, after you've moved around 4 or 5 times, life isn't that way. And so what are we, what's really high school all about? What's college all about? Teaching you how to deal with life. And I think the opportunity to turn tail and run because the competition looks too stiff is not the right way to go.
Yeah, Joe, I grew up with that too. My parents said, you can do what you want, but if you start it, you got to finish it. There's no chance in the world you're going to let you out in the middle of a season or anything you were doing.
Yeah.
And you're right. I was going to ask you about college sports in a couple of minutes, college football especially, but between NIL, the name, image, and likeness, and the fact that there is no 1-year wait anymore once you transfer, has completely changed the landscape, hasn't it? It's made it a completely different sport.
Yeah, it's professional. Now in high schools, now there's NILs available to high school kids, which just is destroying. I mean, I think the state of Florida might have that. And, it's taken the element of competition, as I mentioned, out of it. And you've got a lot of young people that are getting sums of money. And then you have people that propose situations to parents that are difficult to make. It's tough decisions for parents to make going forward. I mean, if you're a family that needs money and somebody says, here it is.
Yeah.
What do you do? I don't envy parents quite often in that situation, the decisions that they have to make going forward.
In your book, which we're going to touch on in a few minutes as well, you talk about the fact that you loved playing college sports because of the innocence of it, and that it felt pure almost. And I just don't see how that's possible anymore at the level that they're playing now.
It's not possible. You look at some of the colleges, they've had 60, 70 players leave programs.
Right.
Just leave the programs. I shake my head sometimes and I think of college coaches. How do you recruit someone to come to your school and be in your program? And how do you keep them? I mean, the economics are getting so large in so many aspects, and you can only go so far with the economics of it. I think that there'll be legislation coming forward that will have to be established to control what's happening in collegiate sports in particular. And like I say, even trickling down into high school sports.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You look at Bill Belichick at North Carolina.
Yeah.
He had 70 new players.
Right.
70 new players. I mean, how do you build a team that
How many are
way
going to stay after? How many are going to stay after this year?
and
I mean,
finish?
you're
That's right.
you're in a constant rotation with people, and you basically have to coach in the moment. You don't coach to establish something going forward, but you have to coach in the moment, because there's that ability for someone just to decide that, okay, I don't want to compete against this guy. He's bigger. Instead of making myself bigger and stronger, it's just easier to go find someplace else where you think you might fit in. And I just don't, I think it's not healthy for collegiate athletics. Like I say, well,
Yeah. And think about, I think you said that when you went to Notre Dame, there were 7 quarterbacks on the roster, 13 quarterbacks on the roster. So
I was,
you look at
Kurt, I was the littlest and the skinniest of all of them.
you were the smallest, right? Yeah. That story about how you became the starter is great, and we're probably not going to have time to get into it too much, but there were 13 quarterbacks, so you had to climb this ladder. In the current situation, if you've got 13 quarterbacks or 7 quarterbacks on the roster, there's no way in the world you're ever going to climb that ladder, so you're going to go someplace else.
If you've got 3,
yeah,
sometimes it's tough to compete. But, like I said, I think those days are gone. I'm not one of these people that sits around and says, well, I wish it was like it was. I think what we have to do is take a look at what the situation is today for high school athletes, and what is the best for you as a parent, for your child, or for the young person's individual decisions that they want to make. Like I say, I think if they decide to go do something, have them see it through. That's the one thing we can do. Is if you're making a commitment, you're making a full commitment. Maybe at the end of the year you do something else, but right now you're making that full commitment.
Yeah, my grandchildren love it when I say, when in my day, they go, oh, and they walk away and say, your day, your day.
You mean when the dinosaurs roamed the earth? Is that what we're talking about?
Man, as we used to say, we played in cow fields, for goodness sakes,
Yeah, we did.
Any place we could find. Any place we could find, we were playing. And we were playing all day, right?
Sure.
And I'm sure you have the same thing. Your parents threw you out of the house, and you were during the summer, and you came back for lunch, and then you came back for dinner because you were out with your friends. That's the other thing, of course, that's missing. There's no sandlot anymore, right? We used to go pick up 5 guys and play baseball all afternoon or football all afternoon. That's gone too.
Now you don't have time because you're committed to so many different programs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I said, as a parent with like 3 children, 2 even makes it tougher. But 3 is like, I don't know how they balance everything. I have such admiration for parents that want their kids involved in athletics and activities. And then all of a sudden, how do you get from one to the other? I mean, it's carpooling, and it's just a lot of planning has to go into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then nowadays, the sports overlap too. So for example, my grandson is on a travel baseball team, but he plays flag football too, NFL flag, which he really loves.
Right.
Quarterback, by the way, quarterback.
Good.
And sometimes he's got games at the same time. And how my kids balance it, I have no idea.
Well, they have to be like Dion, just get a helicopter.
Yeah.
And, fly them from one place to the next and have them show up. I mean,
let me write that down.
And economically too.
How do you spell helicopter here, Joe? Let me write that down for my kids. So, hey, I want to touch on your books because you've written a couple. You've done a couple or one Idiot's Guide to Football. And I couldn't tell if it was two of them, right?
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, my wife said that's the one I should read, The Idiot's Guide to Football. But the one you wrote in 2020, I think it came out in 2020, called How to Be a Champion Every Day, which I bought as soon as we got you lined up for this podcast and read pretty quickly on my way out to Kansas City and back, the reason I like it so much, Joe, is it's simple. It's got these 6 principles. It's easy to follow from one chapter to another. It's easy to see how they build on each other. And so I want to ask you about some of the things in the book. We're not going to get to all 6, but a couple of them. Here's the ones that stood out for me. I really love the fact that you said that you had spent a good part of your life trying to prove yourself. And then you said, who am I proving myself to? Right? That we spend so much time making believe that other people really care that much about who we are and what we're doing. Right? We always think everyone's thinking about us.
So true.
But talk a little bit about that and what you meant by who am I trying to prove to?
I think so often we get caught up with other people's opinions of us.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I stress in my lectures and presentations is don't let anybody define you. You have to define yourself. People are, there's jealousy out there. There's certainly competition. If you're competing against somebody, they're not going to be kind and nice. But they want the job too. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so that's why I say that, foundationally, I wrote the book based on a principle that the world of sports, the world of business, and our own lives all parallel one another. And I tried to take the foundations of what I think build a good foundation. It's like I tell people, the great pyramids of Egypt were not built on their point. They're built on a foundation. And I think that's the thing that parents, you want to help try and create a foundation for your young person, for that young individual that's going off into life, that's getting away from home, whatever it might be. But you want to build a foundation so that they have something to stand on for themselves, not based upon what someone else has. And I'll tell you something, I understand with social media today, it's tough. It's tough, but you have to be able to find it. I think if you really want to try and gain the success that hopefully you can get.
Yeah, the define yourself thing I like a lot, right?
Yeah.
Who am I is not determined by somebody else.
Should never be
determined by me. And that's one of the reasons I like the book, because you gave us steps, you gave us ways to look at this in terms of our attitude and in terms of defining who we are. So this is so important, especially for young athletes, youth athletes, and high school athletes. All right, so I got to get to the hit. And anyone who knows sports, I know exactly where I was, Joe. I know exactly where I was, and I was watching. I was a Giant fan. I was born and raised in New York, of course. But the thing about the hit that I want to talk about, in case folks out there don't know, in 1985, right, Joe? It was 1985.
November 18th, 1985, 10:06 p.m.
Joe took a terrible, terrible hit, broke his leg in about 138 places. And pretty much that was the end of your career, the great 12-year career. But the thing that touched me in the book was the conversation you finally had with the guy who did it, Lawrence Taylor, who, of course, being a Giant fan, we were big Lawrence Taylor fans. And instead of talking about, gee, I'm sorry, Joe, or gee, I wish that hadn't happened, Taylor said something different to you, didn't he?
Yeah, Lawrence and I have see each other a lot. We've actually played golf together, but I won't let him stand where I can't see him. That's the prerequisite if we're going to play.
Or either that or have the other two guys play right tackle and left tackle.
That next morning after the injury, the nurse came in. She said, Mr. Theismann, Mr. Taylor's on the phone. Would you like to speak to him? I said, yes, I would. So I get on the phone. I said, LT, is that you? He says, yeah, Joe, how you doing? I said, not very well. He says, why? I said, why? You broke both bones of my leg, for crying out loud. He said, Joe, you have to understand something. I don't do things halfway. Got to go to practice. Talk to you later. And we chuckled and laughed about it. But then about 4 years after that, he had a restaurant bar up in New Jersey, and he invited me up. And they played the injury behind us. Neither one of us looked at it. And I turned to him and I said, LT, you and I are always going to be connected through this injury, through this situation. We know how it affected my life and ended my career. How did it affect yours? He said, Joe, I learned a great lesson that night, that no matter how great you are at what you do, it can be over in an instant. And that every day you have to get the most out of the day. You can't wait for tomorrow because we don't have a guarantee of tomorrow. And I thought that was very prophetic. And I think it applies to every aspect of life. You have to get the most out of today. How can I be a better person? I always tell people this: you have to be better today than you were yesterday and better tomorrow than you were today. As a parent, as a friend, in every aspect that you could possibly be, as a brother or a sister, it doesn't matter, a partner. You just want to continue to get better and better and better. And I reference a ladder. I say every step you take in life is like going up one rung of a ladder. I just don't have a top rung on my ladder. I just want to be a better person, be a better friend, be a better individual. And it really starts with us. I think this is the thing is, like I say, when I emphasize so much that don't let people define you, I'm really talking about not just young people, but other people are under that influence as well. And just look in a mirror and be proud of who's there. Look at that person. They're a heck of a person. Just let them be that person instead of trying to be what someone wants you to be.
And that's if it's in your business, that's in your job, that's in your
everyday
relationships. Life. The other thing LT said to you was that he learned because it could be gone tomorrow, to leave nothing on the table.
Right. That's
And
right.
and that, I think, is great advice for especially a young person in sports or out of sports. That, my wife says to me all the time, "You're doing what?" And I tell her, "Yeah, I'm going to do a podcast." She said, "What the hell do you know about a podcast?" I said, "I don't know, but I've never been qualified for any job I've ever had in my life. Why should I start now?"
Why not? Why
Right?
not have another one? Right.
Just keep going. Try the next one.
Yeah.
Two other quick things from the book that I really liked a lot, and then I'll ask a question or two more and let you go. I like the fact that you talked about being a tenacious worker and an insatiable learner. What do you mean by tenacious worker? Does it
But,
mean working all the time?
no, it's a work ethic. When you get involved in something, work hard to be good at it. Not just good, but great. Too many people settle for being good. It's like a friend of mine told me once, pretty good is pretty bad. Why not try and be great at something? If you really love it, if you're really passionate about it, learn as much as you can about it. Learn as much about yourself when you're doing it. It's a great way to grow as an individual. And my favorite saying is really simply, when it comes to learning, is the day you stop learning is the day you stop living. Every one of us in our lives,
Yeah.
have to learn, know today. And then what do you know tomorrow is going to help you today. And you just keep growing and growing and growing as a person, in the world of business, in relationships. I think those are all things that are very important to people in their lives. And so those are the things I talk about regarding the book.
And you became an avid reader after your career was over, or have you always been an avid reader?
No, it was all sports for me when I was a kid growing up.
Yeah, the same thing here.
I still travel a lot, and I really enjoy reading, and I enjoy learning from other people. That to me is the great thing of having a chance to be able to interact with other individuals. What do you learn from them? And here's the other thing too, and I think we're in a society today where people want to be contrarians with one another. Instead of sitting down and having an open mind, if someone doesn't agree with you, listen to what they have to say instead of taking a closed-minded approach and say, "I'm not interested in what you say. I have my opinion." Well, your opinion may be right, but the way you grow is you listen to other people. You give them a chance to share their experience. Why do they believe in what they believe in? You don't have to agree with them 100%, but maybe they make some sense in some aspect of your life. We're so divisive as a country. I think we're so divisive as individuals today that everybody, just puts their heels in the ground and says, "I'm not budging." Well, I think a little bit of flexibility gives us a chance to grow. And that's something that I think is very important for young people and for older people as well.
My brother and one of my best friends and I have completely different political views. And what we decided is we would never talk politics. And my brother and I have had this pact for 20 years because we looked at each other and said, we are not going to become estranged because of anything in that. So there's that as well, that, you don't always have to
But
respond.
if you're willing to listen, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, okay? To be able to listen to what people have to say. And you may agree or disagree. If you don't agree with something, why? It's like when I was in broadcasting, I call it the what, why business. All right. You're watching a football game. Like, for example, the Ravens and the Detroit Lions. I'm watching this football game. My eyes are telling me what I see. Okay. But the important thing is, why did something happen? If you and I disagree, why? You have an opinion. I have an opinion. I respect your opinion. That word respect seems to be running out of society in a big way.
Yeah.
But I respect your opinion. I don't necessarily agree with it, and here's why I see it differently. And you can have a healthy conversation and look at someone else's perspective and basically say, okay, you know what? Maybe, I'm sort of leaning, I don't go fully in that direction, but you do make sense. I took the most important courses I took in college were speech and argumentation. And I think the most important thing that you can do today in society is communicate with people, communicate with one another, have the ability to be able to sit down and listen, express your opinion, and then shake hands and, go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to let you go.
That's
I
my
promise.
counseling. That's my family counseling for you today.
Well, I appreciate that. But I can't let you go without asking about Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. I think you said at one point, I don't remember who you said this to, or maybe I read it in the newspaper, that you've spent some time with Jaden Daniels. He seems like a really good kid.
He is a wonderful athlete, wonderful person, great work ethic. Wants to be great, doesn't want to be good, wants to be great. And that only comes, I mean, God, you get a gift. Your athleticism is a gift from God, I believe. So you have this gift. Now, what are you going to do with it? You're going to leave it wrapped in a package, or are you going to try and open it and see how good it can possibly be, or see what's inside? His soul is great, terrific young man, intelligent, very gifted athletically, throws the deep ball really well, which is an essential part of what we do in our game.
Yeah.
But there's every aspect of him that you can't help but like. And when you're around him, you appreciate him even more. I think Washington's quarterback situation is in absolutely terrific hands. And just on one other note is you can't have one. I mean, look at the NFL. 5 of them were down in week 3.
Right.
Now you got a couple more guys going down. It's not an easy business. It's a violent, tough business. And you have to be tough to be able to handle it. Jaden had the week off because of a knee. But, it was smart to have somebody like Marcus Mariota step in and do the job that he has done.
Yeah.
That's, when you think of it, there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League, Kurt. But you need 64 total, minimum. I mean, when you stop it, there's 64 guys that have to be able to play that position if you think you have a chance to win.
Well,
but Jaden is one of those exceptional young men.
I love his smile.
Yeah.
Man, it just lights up wherever he is, right?
No matter what's going on either.
And he looks like he's having fun, and not every athlete does.
You're right.
When they're playing.
You're absolutely right.
Joe, so appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's a great way for us to start this whole process. You're looking great, by the way.
Thank you.
76-year-old man.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere. That's me too. So that's why I wanted to. And so thanks so much, Joe, for coming on.
Kurt, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor to do your first show with you.
Well, you have no idea. And for our audience out there, if you've got ideas for people that we can talk to, just send an email to loudonnowsports@gmail.com, and we'll take a look at it and see if it's someone we want to bring on the show. Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome, buddy. Take care.
Take care.